you can spend your whole life going over the what ifs, and you can look back and you can harbor resentment and anger and frustration and grief, and that's fine, that's good. These emotions are healthy emotions, right? But you have to get to a certain point where you say, right, that is what happened. I wasn't armed with the information. I wasn't privy to that information at the time for a reason. However spiritual you are, that wasn't the right time for me to have known. And right now is the right time because I'm going to be able to support my daughter.
Welcome to Motherhood in ADHD. I'm your friend, Patricia Sung. My mission is to be a lighthouse for mothers with ADHD, helping you find your path to success by learning to appreciate your ADHD as an asset. I'm seeking to change the paradigm that ADHD means your life is doomed to be a hot mess. So I'm sharing strategies and encouraging you in your pursuit of happiness to love who you are every day of your ADHD life. Hey there, Successful Mama. It's your friend, Patricia Sung. This month, we're mixing it up as we feature successful mamas, all of whom have ADHD. In the first episode, each of these beautiful women will share their ADHD story with you. And while each lady is different, I know that parts of every story will resonate in your heart as we share in both her pain and the triumphs of living with ADHD. Each of these women also has a heart for the ADHD community. As we dive into our self-care series, each mama will share with us in the second episode an area of self-care that we can use to take care of our ADHD brain, body, and soul. Because taking care of yourself is a basic requirement of living, like food and water, not a luxury item. I cannot wait for you to not only learn what gives you energy, but know wholeheartedly that it is totally doable that when we make it ADHD friendly, we can take care of ourselves well. We're starting with simplicity, baby steps, and we're aiming for progress over perfection. Self-care can and must be done in every stage of motherhood. Get ready. Let's figure out what self-care truly fits you. You are worthy, you are valuable, and you are not alone. Come on, meet this successful ADHD mama. Our guest this week is Kate Moryoussef of Coaching by Kate. Like many of us, Kate was torn between stay-at-home mom and working mom, wanting to be at home with her babes, but also feeling like she was drawn to more. As she wandered her way into her calling, as many of us do, Kate realized that who she wanted to help were women like herself. But she wasn't quite sure how to describe us. See, Kate didn't know that there was a name for women like her, women like us, until recently, as she was diagnosed with ADHD just a few months ago. Knowing who she is has made all the difference. Now, Kate is using her ADHD to help women as a well-being coach, using emotional freedom technique, also called tapping, to help her clients. Tapping is our topic of discussion in part 2 of our interview. So let's jump right in and meet Kate. How are you doing today?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Good. So I am so excited to welcome Kate today, and I would love to just tell us a little bit about your diagnosis journey and how did you end up even looking into ADHD?
So ADHD has been part of my life forever, but it's just not been part of my story. It's been part of my brother's. So I've got an older brother and a younger brother, and I'm in the middle. And my older brother got diagnosed with ADHD very young, mid to late 80s. Mm-hmm. So I always knew that this was going on with him. And then I've got a younger brother who's 8 years younger than me. And very soon, after he was probably like age 3 or 4, the same kind of telltale signs were there. So I have definitely been sandwiched in between 2 ADHD boys and seen the repercussions, seen the behavior, seen the fallout, seen the positive aspects. And that's how I knew ADHD. That was the label, that was the box. And I never came across any ADHD girls. Like, it just wasn't part of growing up. No one ever talked about girls with ADHD. And then fast forward many, many years, I was getting my daughter tested for various things that were going on at school, just education stuff. She was great in herself, gorgeous, sweet, smiley, kind, friendly, well-behaved, all these things. But she was struggling with a few different elements. And as she got a bit older, she's now 9. Eventually, I started reading about ADHD in girls. And that's when I started recognizing lots of things that I had gone through and I had felt and continue to feel. And then I started researching about ADHD in women. And I was like, oh, that sounds a bit scarily familiar. So obviously I went down a rabbit hole, as what we do. And I really kind of got my teeth stuck into the research. It was weird because both me and my daughter both ended up being diagnosed on the same week with different doctors. And it was bizarre, but, it was both diagnoses were pretty crystal clear. And my daughter was typical for her age group, nothing crazily sort of extreme, but she was ticked all the boxes, and I did as well. And again, it's not been horrifically detrimental to my life, but there's been so many elements to it that if I'd had more awareness, perhaps things could have been different. But the diagnosis in itself has been a huge relief, and I've felt an incredible lightness, because now I understand myself more. Now I understand all the little quirky things I've always done, and my friends have laughed at me about, my husband's always commented about, I've always known, but also some of the darker stuff, the anxiety, the overwhelm, all the different things. I guess I've just managed coping mechanisms, just kind of done what I needed to do to get through life, but now I understand why. And so it's definitely been an interesting few months in our house.
So how long ago was it that you had your diagnosis?
I guess it's about 3.5 months now.
So you're a wee babe in the family, but yet, right. I mean, you've been around it your entire life. So when you think back about how both your brothers have it, what are the feelings that come up when you think about they knew, but I didn't, and them having assistance, but also the label? How does all that play out in the last couple of months?
It's funny because I've not really thought about it like that. I guess I was kind of labeled the easy one in between the two problematic brothers. And when I say problematic, I don't mean sort of, they were just, their behavior was difficult to deal with for my parents. My parents got divorced. Whether or not that would have happened if they didn't have ADHD, children, there was a huge amount of pressure. And both my brothers, academically, they struggled and they moved schools, and it was difficult for them. And I have a lot of compassion for the way they grew up. The way I grew up was, I kind of was very average at school. Nothing great, nothing terrible. Looking back at my reports now, I actually did that. I kind of found old reports, and it was amazing to look at. And it was very much like, if Kate concentrated more, then she would achieve X. If Kate did all her homework on time, but I guess my parents were focused on my brothers. And so when I came home with kind of very average grades, the fact was I wasn't getting into trouble. I was kind of doing the work I was meant to do, maybe not to the level that I should have been doing it. So it was sort of swept under the carpet. It was just not even kind of, an eyebrow wasn't raised because I wasn't causing any trouble. But little things that I remember are of social anxiety. I blushed like crazily when I was a child. Up until recently, I would be terrified to speak up in public, terrified to voice my opinion, to use my voice at all. I was really shy. There was lots of other obstacles in play. We moved country. I moved schools many, many times. I had to learn in a new language. So these were things that I guess masked a lot of issues. If I'd been in one school, I'd stayed in the same city with the same friends, then perhaps, but because I was kind of not struggling under quite difficult circumstances, I looked like I was quite capable. I looked like things were fine. And it was only until I started, I guess, at university when I started noticing, I'm not very good at concentrating. I'm not very good at handing in my assignments. Or the dissertation that I was doing, I kept getting more and more extensions. But again, both my brothers didn't go to university, so I was kind of deemed the academic one. And I was like the least academic. So I guess my benchmarks were slightly, but you can spend your whole life going over the what ifs, and you can look back and you can harbor resentment and anger and frustration and grief, and that's fine, that's good. These emotions are healthy emotions, right? But you have to get to a certain point where you say, right, that is what happened. I wasn't armed with the information. I wasn't privy to that information at the time for a reason. However spiritual you are, that wasn't the right time for me to have known. And right now is the right time because I'm going to be able to support my daughter. and I'm going to be able to get to know myself, and then I'm going to be able to serve others and help my clients and help myself, and hopefully equip my daughter with all the things that maybe I needed to be equipped with. So I very much want to live right now in the present, and that's what I want to help my clients with as well, is that it is very easy to live in the past and to hold on to that. But actually, however old you are when you've had a diagnosis, that's the time that you've had the diagnosis, and you can never change it. So yeah, it's about kind of looking at your present, looking at the future, and you kind of empowering yourself with new tools to move forwards.
It is amazing to hear you say all of that, because it feels like you are reading back my childhood as well. The same thing where I did pretty good in school, so nobody worried about me. And I recently cleaned out some stuff and I found my old report cards, and I'm reading the comments of my kindergarten report card says, "Oh, Patricia cries a lot." And, later on it's, "Well, Patricia's not paying attention, or she's not turning her things in on time." You look back with 2020 vision, it's like, hello, did nobody see this? But by the same token, like you said, in the 80s, it just wasn't a thing. Girls weren't diagnosed very much. I mean, there were some, but it just wasn't a thing back then. And so
it was a one-dimensional look, wasn't it? It was literally, you're a boy, you're naughty, you're bouncing off the walls, let's give him some Ritalin. And that's what it was. It was like boys, but they didn't have the knowledge. And I really believe right now the awareness is coming, and people like yourself and so many people doing such amazing work, being able to get the awareness out there. So there's not going to be a lost generation. And I really believe that. I don't know how old you are. I mean, I'm 40, but
39.
So it's very much a lost generation of women of being left to fend for themselves without the knowledge of what's going on. And there's such a common thread in all the stories of the women that I speak to and you see on the Facebook pages and clients. They all feel like they're grieving either childhood, lost education, lost career, lost opportunities, that if they'd known what was wrong with them, they could have changed things. And that's really sad. But I hope that this work that we're doing now stops people from being medicated on the wrong medication for like antidepressants or bipolar, anxiety medication. They're now being given the opportunity to understand how their brain works and what they can do to help themselves. And we're going to have this amazing new generation of women who are like going to be running the world.
Yes.
So I'm excited. I am excited because this is just the beginning, and I think we're going to see some great things come out of this.
I agree. I am very hopeful in the way that information is being researched and disseminated and shared, and that, yes, our kids are not going to have to deal with it in the way that we dealt with it. There's hope there, and that hope spreads and that knowledge spreads so that for generations, our kids are going to be better off and have more strategies and more tools and more understanding to flourish and really be successful, rather than, I agree. The grief that I see in groups from women who get their diagnosis later is heartbreaking. But you're right, we can't change what happened in the past. So sitting in that space is good to work through, but at some point we do have to say, we can't change it. What am I going to do now? What can I change now? What can I do moving forward? And it's hard, but it is vital to our well-being as well.
And I'm not dismissing any of that. And I don't want it to seem like I'm coming from like a callous place. I feel like it's very much a place of compassion, that we are allowed to accept and allow and have validation for everything that we've gone through. But like you say, it's like, okay, what can we change now? And I actually feel like that comes from like a place of empowerment and hope, because then it's kind of like, okay, that was that chapter of my life, and this is the next chapter of my life. And there's lots of hope there that life doesn't have to kind of be over just because you got diagnosed at 40, 50, 60. It just gives you new coping mechanisms and tools to succeed. And I think we're seeing so many more women now changing careers, having, breaks in their career due to having kids. This is what happened to me. I had time out. It completely changed my career. And I think that as that's becoming the norm, someone with ADHD is not going to stand out as much. That stigma is not going to be there if you want to change career. That we're seeing people now having first careers, second careers, third careers. When I trained in EFT, I trained along women who were like in their 60s and 70s. And that was so inspiring. I was literally training with women the same age as my mum. And my mum's kind of retired. And I was like, guys, this is incredible. You're showing me that your grandmas and you're kind of juggling babysitting your grandchildren and helping women and men online across the world with EFT. It just shows to me that we can do anything we want whenever we want, and it's literally only ourselves that are telling us if we can do it or not. So I just think that don't allow that negative inner voice that we have, and it's so strong sometimes and so loud, to tell us that we can't do things, because we're going to find our own way of doing it. It might not be someone else's way. It might not be considered the right way 10 years ago. But I think now we've been given opportunities more than ever to kind of work in different ways. Like, who would have thought 2 or 3 years ago that working from home and me doing online podcasts across the world and working with clients, literally in different countries, that would be a way of working. People would be like, no, you need to live, you sit in an office, you need to have a team, you need to do everything properly and structured. And now it's not that way. And I think it's perfect for us and our brains to operate like this.
Hey there, successful mama. Are you as time blind as I am? The solution is here. No more, I was supposed to be somewhere 20 minutes ago. Panic on the daily. If you're a double booker or an appointment forgetter, I can help. Do you know why you can't keep track of it all? Because you either don't have the skills or you don't have the system. Likely both. Keeping a calendar is a basic life skill that many of us never learned. Why? Because either no one taught us, or they taught us in a way that didn't make sense to our ADHD brains. Let's change that. I hate watching you struggle on life skills that are learnable. Remember, you are not doomed to be a hot mess. Feeling confident and prepared is doable. Keeping up with a calendar can be attainable. I want to give you a basic system that works for your life and then help you develop a plan to actually keep up with the system. I know you are ready to build calm and peace into your day by knowing where you need to be and when. My class on how to keep a calendar when you have ADHD is just what you need to learn these skills in a way that makes sense to ADHD brains like ours. Head over to patriciasung.com/ADHD calendar, it's all one word, and sign up now. You are not alone, and I'm here to help you create the motherhood success story that you deserve. Stop the chaos and sign up for class right now. patriciasung.com/ADHD calendar. So what do you feel you do differently now that you know versus a few months back when you weren't sure?
There's a lot more awareness. There's so much more. I guess it's my emotional regulation. And I see it with my daughter. And I guess, we see our kids as our mirrors, and they reflect back at us. And there's a lot of things I see in my daughter that I do. And I go, right, okay, I need to work on that for myself.
Yeah.
And I need to help her with that. And so when I get really irritable and impatient and I see her doing that, and I kind of, right, okay, there you go, there's one thing. But before, I would have just probably not really noticed it, and I would have just got more and more irritated, where now I'm like, oh, I'm getting irritable, I'm getting snappy, go for a walk, leave the room, do some tapping, yoga, meditation, get my oils out. It's so funny. I get laughed at because I have it's almost like I kind of imagine it as this raincoat, and I open this raincoat and I've got everything in there, and I'm like, right, which one am I going to pull out today? And that's kind of how I operate. I have a lot of tools under my belt, and I pull different things out for when I need them, and I don't feel as helpless. And 2 or 3 years ago, I did feel helpless. I used to come to my husband, and I bless him for listening to the never-ending kind of woe is me. It was very self-deprecating, very kind of like, oh, I'm never going to be anything. And he would always be building me up. Thank God he did, because he always gave me another lift up. But I feel I actually have the tools now to be able to do that myself, and to be able to acknowledge, okay, right, you need a break, Kate. You need to get off the laptop. You need to go and take a walk, or you need to go and call a friend. You've not called a friend for a few days, pick up the phone. So there's definitely more awareness now. And that's really good. It's really good to have that awareness. And it means that I can help my daughter with her awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'd had that at the age of 9, just for someone to go, stop right there. What you're doing now, is that helping you? Is that making you feel better? Or when she achieves something that I know is hard for her and I know is taking extra effort and I can see she's emotionally exhausted and drained from it, I come to her and I tell her, have you noticed that you did that work and I could see you were getting frustrated, but actually you finished it and look at you, you deserve a break now. So I really hope that things like that I can notice more, even more in the future.
That's like making me a little teary when I think about my boys and that same, that the emotional struggle of when they're getting so frustrated about something, and that on my bad days, I just jump in the pool with them and it just goes downhill and like everybody's drowning. And when I can take a step back and say, okay, here's the path they're heading on. I know that path. And be like, okay, having that pause and teaching them that pause to say, okay, yes, this is really hard. Yes, we are frustrated. Here's ways that we can get that anger out. That's a healthy way. Let's talk about it is a gift that I can give them when I look at it as a gift.
Yeah.
It's hard to look at all that past struggle as a gift, but we can. Not to say that it's without any kind of negativity, but when we can take all that and then hand that gift to someone else and say, hey, I can show you, I can teach you about this. I'm not perfect, but we can try together.
That's so true. And that's what it is, isn't it? It's like we've kind of walked this path unknowingly and we've faced those struggles and we've got through them in our best ways. Like some days we have, done it well, some days we haven't. And I know that I'm still going to carry on like this, it's not going to change. I'm still going to kind of like have an outburst, or I'm still going to feel frustrated, or my self-esteem might just take a dip about something, and I might become really sensitive about the way someone's just spoken to me, or I've misread an email, and I see her do that in her little life. So it's just basically taking our experiences, isn't it, and giving them that gift, and to help them. And I do feel how I see the difference it makes, because she becomes more open to be able to talk to me about things and what she notices as well, and just to make it like not a taboo either, just so it's not even a thing. We can just talk about things like that without it even, I've got 4 kids and they know about it. We joke about it. We have a sense of humor. And I think that's really important, because we have got this kind of predestined kind of sensitivity.
Yes.
That if we kind of hone this humor muscle, it does help us not take life so seriously, and we can go down that rabbit hole of being quite serious and overthinking, and it just kind of helps just take the edge off a little bit and allow them to have fun. Like, one of the biggest things I've learned is that life should be fun. Like, I used to take life really, really seriously, and yes, it is, and bad things happen all the time. But essentially, if we have fun every day in some capacity, and we can bring joy in whatever that is, then it takes the edge off from when we are having that bad day and we think the world's coming to an end. I guess it's just flexing our muscles, isn't it? And just kind of going back and going, right, let's find something fun to do. Let's think about something fun. And that does help as well. It's all about the brain, isn't it? The way we can treat it as a muscle. We can make it grow and change and adapt. And that's one of the biggest lessons that we can give these kids, our kids, is that you don't have to be that same person you are now. You can really, it's the neuroplasticity, isn't it? We can train ourselves to think differently and to not be in a negative spiral. It takes time, it takes effort, but it is possible. And so I think that's a great way to help our kids, so they understand that nothing is permanent, that everything's temporary, what they're feeling, and things are going to change and they're going to evolve and they're going to get better and then they're going to get worse, but they're going to change. And that's life, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that's such an important point, because when we have ADHD, we're very much in the now. And when you're in those feelings, it feels like I'm going to feel like this forever. And it is very hard to see past, like part of with our time blindness. It's hard to think about how I'm going to feel even in 5 minutes, let alone later today or in a few weeks when you're in that emotional stress point. So yeah, I need that reminder. I need like a tattoo on my head. Life's meant to be fun, Patricia. Don't be so serious. I need that. Mama, we're going to pause there. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so that part 2 shows up on your phone right away when Kate and I dive into our discussion on self-care, feelings of not being good enough, and how we can use tapping as part of our ADHD treatment. Talk to you soon, Successful Mama. Thank you for listening to Motherhood and ADHD. For more resources, head over to our website, www.motherhoodandadhd.com.